The first thing I saw wasn't my husband. It was my best friend's shoes. Burgundy stilettos with a thin ring of crystals around the toes, lined up neatly beside Ethan's leather dress shoes, not tossed there by accident, placed together, like they belonged to two people who came home to each other every night. I stood frozen inside my own front door, my suitcase still in one hand, my phone in the other. 30 minutes earlier, Ethan had texted me from Chicago. "Baby, that meeting must have been exhausting. Get some sleep. Everything's fine at home. I miss you." He thought I was still in London. He thought I wouldn't be home for another 21 days. He had no idea I was already standing inside our condo. The merger project finished almost 3 weeks ahead of schedule. The client signed the final documents early. I changed my flight before anyone could stop me. I told no one. Not Ethan, not my Aunt Helen, not even Vanessa Moore, for 11 hours on the flight home. I'd imagined surprising my husband. I pictured him opening the door, smiling the way he used to, before our marriage became airport lounges, video calls, and apologies squeezed between meetings. Instead, I found Vanessa's shoes. 2 months earlier, Vanessa had called me sobbing. The apartment above mine flooded. The ceiling collapsed. My landlord says repairs could take at least 8 weeks. I was rushing through O'Hare Airport when she called. Ethan stood beside me listening. When I hesitated, he answered before I did. "She can't stay alone in some cheap hotel. We have a guest room. She's family." I remembered smiling, thinking, this is why I married him. Vanessa had been my closest friend for 12 years. We survived college together, shared a freezing basement apartment, split one discounted pizza over an entire weekend because neither of us had enough money for groceries. She held me while my mother died. I helped her rebuild after 2 terrible relationships. There had never been a reason not to trust her or him. I quietly closed the front door, didn't turn on the lights. The curtains overlooked the Chicago River. City lights slipped through a narrow gap, revealing the room one detail at a time. A silk shawl lay across my sofa. 2 wine glasses rested on the coffee table. One carried a faint stain of rose-colored lipstick. A white orchid stood beside the television. Vanessa adored orchids. I couldn't keep one alive if my life depended on it. Then I noticed something else. The wall above the fireplace looked wrong. Our wedding portrait was gone. The frame leaned against the coat closet, face turned toward the wall, as though someone didn't want it watching anymore. Before I could process that thought, a woman's laughter drifted from the master bedroom. Soft, comfortable, intimate. Not the awkward laugh of a house guest staying too late. The laugh of someone completely at home. Every instinct screamed at me to throw open the bedroom door, to demand answers, to make them explain what my eyes already knew. Instead, something colder took over. I opened my phone, started recording, then slipped off my heels and walked silently across the hardwood floor. The bedroom door stood slightly open. Vanessa sat against my pillows, wearing my emerald silk robe. A folder rested across her lap. Ethan sat beside her with one arm wrapped around her waist. My bed, my lamp, my robe. The candle I'd carried back from Paris because Ethan once whispered it smelled like our honeymoon. Nothing in that room belonged to them. Yet they looked comfortable enough to believe it did. She still has 21 days. Vanessa turned another page inside the folder. "Are you sure she'll sign?" Ethan laughed quietly. "London paid her more than enough. First, I move the bonus into our joint account. Then I get the authorization signed. After that, everything becomes easy." Vanessa glanced toward the bedroom door. "And the condo?" "We've lived here 6 years." He shrugged. "I'll get my share." "If Claire argues," I'll tell everyone she cared more about work than her marriage. People always believe the husband who got ignored. Vanessa smiled. What if she finds out about us first? Ethan didn't even hesitate. Then you cry. Tell her I manipulated you. She'll defend you before she finishes blaming me. Vanessa laughed. She's too loyal. I sent 3 fake flood pictures. She never even checked where they came from. I have her spare key, and her building access card, and now I'm living in her house. Ethan leaned over, kissed her, and smiled. You understand my wife better than I do. The words hit harder than the kiss, not because they were sleeping together, because they had studied me, measured me, turned every act of kindness into a weakness they could predict. I quietly saved the recording to encrypted cloud storage, made 2 backup copies, then walked back to the front door, put my shoes on, grabbed my suitcase, and deliberately slammed its wheels against the metal threshold. The crash echoed through the condo. Silence. Then hurried footsteps. Ethan rushed into the hallway. His shirt was buttoned wrong. His hair was a mess. The color drained from his face. Claire? What are you doing here? Not, welcome home. Not, I missed you. Only, what are you doing here? I smiled wearily. The project finished early. I wanted to surprise you. The project finished early. I wanted to surprise you. Ethan forced a smile. It looked painful, like his face hadn't been given enough time to prepare. You should have called. I would have picked you up. I changed the flight at the last minute. I set my suitcase beside the wall, then glanced toward the hallway. Is Vanessa still awake? For the smallest fraction of a second, his body shifted, blocking my view of the bedroom. The guest bathroom drain clogged. The shower stopped working, so she borrowed ours. His answer came too quickly, almost as if he'd rehearsed it before I even asked. Right on cue, Vanessa appeared. She'd changed into pale blue pajamas, but she'd forgotten one thing. A faint crimson mark still rested just above her collarbone, barely hidden beneath her hair. Her eyes widened. Claire, what are you doing home? Almost the exact same words Ethan had used. I looked at her for a long moment. This is my home. Do I need permission to come back? The color drained from her face. Then, tears appeared with astonishing speed. Oh my God. That's not what I meant. I was just surprised. You've been gone so long. Ethan and I worried about you every single day. Have you? I almost asked. Instead, I smiled politely. I'm touched. That night, Vanessa insisted on sleeping in the guest room. Ethan spent nearly an hour explaining away every detail I'd seen. The skincare products in our bathroom? The guest sink was clogged. The long brown hair on my pillow? She borrowed your hairdryer. The missing wedding portrait? The hook came loose. Every lie sounded ridiculous, but he delivered each one with complete confidence. Not because the stories were believable, because he believed I would rather doubt myself than doubt him. I nodded, at the right moments, asked nothing. When he reached for a hug, I stepped back. Jet lag. I'm going to shower. He accepted the excuse immediately, relieved. Inside the bathroom, I locked the door, then stood in front of the mirror. Around my wrist rested the bracelet Ethan had given me on our 5th wedding anniversary. That night, he'd promised we'd never become one of those couples who watched each other with suspicion. Standing beneath the harsh bathroom light, I finally understood something. Trust isn't proof that a marriage is healthy. Sometimes it's simply proof that one person hasn't realized they're being hunted. I slept less than 2 hours. The next morning, the smell of coffee woke me. Vanessa stood in my kitchen, wearing my favorite linen apron. Eggs, toast, fresh fruit, coffee already poured. She moved effortlessly through the room, opening drawers, finding utensils, like she'd memorized every cabinet months ago. Ethan looked up from the newspaper. His smile returned. Vanessa's been making breakfast every morning. She's much better at taking care of a home than either of us. Vanessa laughed softly. Don't say that. Claire works so hard. I'm only trying to help. The performance was flawless. One played the grateful guest, the other played the supportive husband. Together, they looked disturbingly convincing. I picked up my coffee. One sip. Sugar. Too much. Neither of them noticed, because that cup hadn't been made for me. It had been made for Ethan. Without thinking, Vanessa had handed me hers. How's your apartment? I asked casually. Her fork stopped halfway to her mouth. The repairs are taking forever. The insurance company keeps delaying everything. I know a restoration contractor, I smiled. I'll call them today. They're excellent. No. The answer came instantly. I mean, my landlord already has someone. No need to bother. Across the table, Ethan changed the subject. So, are you taking the whole week off? I nodded. I think I'll stay home, catch up on everything. For the first time, I saw genuine concern pass between them, only for a second. Then it disappeared. Ethan left for work just before 8. At the front door, he hesitated. Oh. Don't go into my office. I have confidential client files in there. I stared at him. He'd never once said that in 6 years. Of course, I answered. He kissed my forehead, then left. Vanessa lingered another 10 minutes, claimed she had a client meeting. The moment the front door closed, the condo became completely silent. I waited another 60 seconds, then opened my laptop. Every smart device in the condo, locks, the thermostats, security cameras, garage access, ran through an administrator account, my account. Ethan knew how to erase recent activity from the local system. What he didn't know was the cloud archives couldn't be deleted from inside the house. I logged in. The activity history loaded. My stomach tightened immediately. Vanessa hadn't moved in 2 months ago. She'd been entering our condo days before I ever boarded my flight to London. And that was only the beginning. The cloud history loaded in less than 10 seconds. I expected a few suspicious entries, maybe a forgotten visit, maybe an overnight stay. Instead, I found a timeline. 3 days before my flight to London. Vanessa entered the condo at 9:12 a.m. She didn't leave until after 2 that afternoon. The next day, she returned. Again. The day after that, she stayed almost 8 hours. The fake flood hadn't brought her into my home. It had simply given them permission to stop hiding. I opened the archived living room footage. The first recording began 42 minutes after my rideshare left for O'Hare. The front door unlocked. Vanessa walked in carrying 2 large suitcases. Not an overnight bag, not a few clothes, 2 full suitcases. Ethan met her halfway across the room. Without saying a word, he pulled her into his arms and kissed her directly beneath our wedding portrait. They stayed there for several seconds, smiling, laughing, like 2 people celebrating the beginning of something. Vanessa looked up. Her eyes landed on the portrait. I don't like her watching us. Ethan turned toward the fireplace, lifted our wedding picture off the hook, then leaned it against the wall, face first. There, he smiled. This place is ours now. I stared at the screen, not because the affair shocked me anymore, because I'd witnessed the exact moment my marriage stopped existing, and neither of them had looked guilty, only relieved. Another recording. My travel itinerary lay open across the coffee table. Vanessa tapped the screen. What if Claire comes home early? Ethan barely looked up. She won't. But if she does, you cry. I'll tell her I made you believe the marriage was already over. Vanessa laughed. She'll probably comfort me. Exactly. Claire always feels responsible for fixing everyone else's pain. I watched every clip, every kiss, every lie, every rehearsal. Then I copied the files into 3 encrypted folders. 1 cloud backup, 1 external drive, 1 secure server Rachel had once helped me set up for estate records. If anyone tried to erase them again, they'd have to erase the entire internet. I called Rachel Coleman. She answered on the second ring. You're home. You heard it in my voice? I heard it in your silence. I told her everything. The bedroom, the recording, the forged explanations, the security footage. She interrupted only once. What outcome do you want? I looked toward the hallway where Ethan's office door remained closed. A divorce. I want to protect what's mine. And I want proof, real proof. So neither of them can rewrite this story. Rachel didn't hesitate. Then don't confront them. Not yet. Affairs matter emotionally. She continued. But financial fraud changes everything. If they're preparing forged documents, let them finish. The more they reveal, then the less they can deny later. I hated how much sense that made. The fireproof cabinet inside Ethan's office had never been locked. Today, it stood slightly open. Folders had been moved, not stolen, studied. My mother's estate documents sat in the wrong order. The condo closing papers had fresh fingerprints across the tabs. Someone had been searching, looking for something specific, beneath the final folder. I found it. A limited power of attorney prepared in my name, authorizing Ethan Walker to manage several of my investment accounts, transfer funds, execute financial documents, communicate with my advisors. My signature rested neatly at the bottom. Almost perfect. Almost. Except it wasn't mine. For the first time since coming home, my hands started shaking. The affair, the lies, the manipulation, those belonged to a broken marriage. This belonged somewhere else. This was premeditated, calculated. He wasn't just trying to replace me, he was trying to become me. By noon, I sat inside my private bank branch. Every password changed. Every investment account received enhanced verification. Every original property record moved into Rachel's office vault. The branch manager personally reviewed my authorizations. No one except you may approve transfers from this point forward. Correct, I answered. No exceptions. From there, I met with a digital forensics specialist. He confirmed deleted camera files could be fully restored. Rachel simultaneously served preservation requests to our condo association. Within hours, building management released elevator records, garage entries, and guest access logs. The manager looked visibly uncomfortable. We believed Ms. Moore was a close relative. I looked up. What relationship was listed? He opened the electronic application, then frowned. Resident's sister-in-law. Sponsor, Ethan Walker. Emergency contact, Ethan Walker. My stomach tightened. He hadn't registered her as a guest. He'd registered her like someone permanently attached to our household. And judging by the paperwork I'd already found, he wasn't planning for her to leave. Rachel called just as I pulled into the parking garage beneath my office. There's one more place you need to check. Our printer. I frowned. The printer? If Ethan prepared forged documents, he had to print them somewhere. When I got home, the condo was empty. Ethan was still at work. Vanessa had supposedly gone to meet a client. I logged into the smart printer's cloud dashboard. Unlike the local memory, the cloud queue hadn't been erased. A list of recently printed files appeared. Most were ordinary: utility bills, travel itineraries, restaurant reservations. Then one document caught my attention. Lease termination confirmation. Tenant, Vanessa Moore. Effective date: 1 week before my flight to London. I opened the PDF. She hadn't been forced out by flood damage. She had voluntarily ended her lease, collected almost all of her security deposit, and scheduled a final inspection before I even left Chicago. I opened another file. 3 photographs. Water pouring through a damaged ceiling, collapsed drywall, ruined carpet. The same images she'd texted me from the airport. I dragged one into a reverse image search. Less than 5 seconds later, the original source appeared. A restoration company's website, Phoenix, uploaded 11 months earlier. Not Chicago. Not Vanessa's apartment. Not even the same state. She hadn't lied in panic. She'd built the lie before I boarded the plane. Rachel arrived 20 minutes later. She studied the documents quietly, then nodded. This wasn't an affair. She closed the laptop. It was a transition plan. Those 4 words settled heavily between us. A transition plan. Not replacing a wife overnight. Replacing her gradually, so no one noticed until she was already gone. The following 3 days, I behaved exactly the way Ethan expected. I answered work emails, cooked dinner, asked about his meetings, laughed at the right moments. I never mentioned the bedroom, the robe, the recording, the cameras. At first, both of them watched me carefully, waiting for the explosion. When it never came, they relaxed. Too much. Vanessa began sitting beside Ethan on the sofa every evening, sometimes close enough that their knees touched. She no longer asked where plates belonged. She already knew. One afternoon, I returned from a grocery run and found her reorganizing my kitchen cabinets. Oh, she smiled awkwardly. I thought this would make cooking easier. For whom? I almost asked. Instead, and I simply watched her finish. The gifts I'd brought back from London remained on the dining table. Luxury chocolates, a silk scarf, a leather notebook. Ethan barely looked at them. The scarf isn't really Claire's color. He picked it up, then handed it directly to Vanessa. This suits you better. She accepted it with practiced hesitation. Oh, I couldn't. You picked it. He smiled. So, enjoy it. Months earlier, that moment would have broken my heart. Now, it simply confirmed what I'd already known. I was being slowly edited out of my own life. On the 4th evening, Ethan finally brought up money. We'd barely started dinner. I heard the client signed early. He cut into his steak. That must have come with a pretty substantial bonus. It should, I answered. He nodded thoughtfully. You've always kept your investments separate, don't you think? After 6 years of marriage. Yeah, it's time we built something together. His voice softened, concerned, supportive. Exactly the tone he'd always used before asking me for something. My financial advisor mentioned family investment planning. I lied smoothly. There could be around $500,000 available after taxes. The fork stopped halfway to Ethan's mouth. Across the table, Vanessa lowered her eyes, but not before I caught the excitement flashing across her face. $500,000. That number had just changed the room. We should move quickly. Ethan leaned forward. I know someone who handles family portfolios. I'll prepare everything. You won't have to worry about the paperwork. I looked at him. Would you really do all that for me? He reached across the table, covered my hand with his. Claire, everything I do is for our future. His wedding ring brushed against my skin. Less than 24 hours earlier, that same hand had rested on Vanessa's waist. I smiled, softly. All right, prepare whatever needs preparing. Across the table, Vanessa quietly lifted her wine glass, trying to hide her smile. Neither of them realized they'd just become impatient, and impatient people always make mistakes. The next afternoon, Ethan walked into the dining room carrying a thick leather folder. He placed it carefully in front of me. I finished everything, he smiled. You only have to sign. Yellow tabs marked every signature line. My favorite fountain pen rested neatly beside the papers. Everything looked thoughtful, almost loving. Until I started reading. The first few pages were harmless. Investment authorizations, tax planning, routine banking forms. Exactly what he'd promised. Then, halfway through the stack, the documents changed. A post-nuptial agreement, a quitclaim deed, an amendment transferring a 50% ownership interest in my condo to Ethan Walker, buried in the middle, hidden beneath paperwork no one would normally question. I looked up. You told me these were investment documents. They are, he answered without hesitation. This just makes future planning easier. We're married. What difference does it make whose name is on the title? I closed the folder. If it doesn't matter. No. Why do I need to give you half today? For the first time, his smile faltered, only slightly. Before Ethan could answer, Vanessa walked in carrying a clean dish towel. She'd clearly been listening. Claire, don't overthink it. Ethan only wants security. It can't feel good for a husband to live in a home that belongs entirely to his wife. I turned toward her. This conversation is between my husband and me. She forced a smile. I'm only trying to help. You seem unusually informed. For someone who's supposed to be staying in the guest room, the color drained from her face. Ethan slammed one hand against the table. What is wrong with you? Vanessa has taken care of this house for 2 months. You've barely been home. Instead of thanking her, yeah, you're interrogating her. There it was. The move I'd watched him use for years. Deflect. Raise his voice. Make my questions sound cruel. Wait for me to apologize. I met his eyes calmly. When did you and Vanessa become everyone? Silence. Real silence. For the first time, he didn't know what to say. A few seconds later, his expression softened. Maybe tonight isn't the right time. He sighed dramatically. We're all exhausted. Then he smiled again. I have a better idea. Let's invite everyone over this weekend. My parents, your aunt and uncle, our closest friends, a welcome home dinner. We'll talk about everything together. He wanted witnesses. If enough people watched, he could turn a property transfer into a test of marital trust, and my refusal into proof that I didn't love him. I nodded slowly. That sounds wonderful. His shoulders relaxed immediately. He thought the trap had worked. He had no idea. I'd been waiting for him to suggest exactly that. Saturday evening arrived. 9 guests filled the condo. Linda and Robert sat near the windows. My Aunt Helen and Uncle Mark sat across from them. 3 longtime couples wandered between the living room and dining area, laughing, drinking wine, asking about London. Vanessa floated effortlessly through the room, refilling glasses, serving appetizers, accepting compliments. She wore my pearl-white cocktail dress, the one I'd bought for a charity gala. No one else seemed to recognize it. I did. Linda watched Vanessa refill Ethan's glass, then smiled warmly. We're so grateful to you. You took wonderful care of Ethan while Claire was overseas. She turned toward me. A marriage can't survive airports forever. When a wife is always gone, people get lonely. Vanessa lowered her eyes modestly. Please don't blame Claire. I was only helping where I could. Helping. Interesting word. Because she'd already taken my closet, my kitchen, my bedroom, and now... So she was quietly taking my place at the table. Halfway through dinner, Ethan stood, raised his wine glass. He thanked everyone for welcoming me home, talked about how difficult my travel schedule had been, mentioned missed anniversaries, distance, loneliness. Then, with perfect timing, he reached for the folder beside his chair. I've been thinking, the best way for Claire and me to rebuild trust is by managing everything together. Linda nodded immediately. That sounds reasonable. Married couples shouldn't keep walls between them. The condo may have belonged to Claire before the wedding. But Ethan has devoted 6 years to that home. My Uncle Mark frowned. I thought this was a welcome home dinner. When did it become a discussion about Claire's property? The room grew noticeably quieter. Everyone looked at me, exactly as Ethan intended. He smiled gently. Claire, you only have to sign. I looked around the table, then smiled back. I'd be happy to discuss trust. I picked up the television remote. But first, I think everyone deserves to see something. Every conversation stopped. Ethan's smile remained in place. For the moment. He thought I was bluffing. He had no idea the television was already connected to my cloud archive. I pressed play. The first video filled the screen. Timestamp: 42 minutes after my car left for O'Hare. The front door opened. Vanessa walked inside, pulling 2 large suitcases. Ethan crossed the room without hesitation, wrapped both arms around her, and kissed her beneath our wedding portrait. No one at the table moved. Linda's wine glass trembled in her hand. Uncle Mark slowly lowered his fork. Vanessa looked as though all the air had vanished from the room. The next clip began immediately. Vanessa glanced up at the wedding portrait. I don't like her watching us. Ethan laughed, lifted the frame from the wall, turned it toward the wall. There, this place will be ours soon enough. The recording ended. No one spoke. The silence was louder than any argument. Then came the third video. My travel itinerary covered the coffee table. Vanessa asked quietly, "What if Claire comes home early?" Ethan smiled. She hates public embarrassment. You cry. I'll tell her I manipulated you. She'll defend you before she finishes blaming me. Vanessa laughed. She's too easy to guilt. I sent 3 fake flood pictures. She never even checked them. Every face around the table changed. Not because of the affair, because of the planning. Ethan lunged toward the television. Turn that off. You had no right to record us. I paused the video. The cameras are inside my home. The security account is registered in my name. You both knew they existed. You simply believed deleting the local files meant they were gone forever. Vanessa burst into tears. She hurried around the table and grabbed my wrist. Claire, please. Ethan told me your marriage was already over. He said you stopped loving him. I believed him. I gently removed her hand. Did he also tell you to fake the flood? Her crying stopped. Only for a second. Long enough for everyone to notice. I changed the screen. A lease termination agreement appeared. Vanessa Moore. Lease voluntarily ended. 1 week before my London flight. Then another image. The fake flood photographs. Beside them, the original restoration company's website from Phoenix. Published almost a year earlier. You didn't lose your apartment, I said quietly. You gave it up. You packed your suitcases. Before I even boarded the plane. The room turned toward Vanessa. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. I changed the screen again. Credit card statements, designer handbags, jewelry, restaurant bills, cosmetics. Even the dry cleaning receipt for the pearl white dress she was wearing. Every purchase had been charged to my personal account. You wore my clothes. You lived in my condo. You spent my money. And then convinced yourself the only thing you stole was my husband. Ethan slammed both hands onto the table. Fine. You know? I'm done pretending. Our marriage was already falling apart. You cared more about your career than your family. I wanted warmth. I wanted someone who was actually here. You could have asked for a divorce, I answered calmly. Instead, you asked for my condo. I placed another document on the table. The forged limited power of attorney. Did you also ask for this? His face emptied. That was only a draft. Then why did you email it to my financial advisor? And why did you tell them I'd already signed it? He looked instinctively toward Vanessa. She stared back in disbelief. You told me. She'd already agreed. You said I was only helping print paperwork. Be quiet, Ethan snapped. No, Vanessa shouted. You promised we'd be living here together. You said half this condo would be yours. You told me Claire's bonus was almost here. I gave up my apartment because of you. Ethan laughed bitterly. I never told you to quit your job. You wanted this life. You chased it. Within seconds, they stopped protecting each other. He called her greedy. She called him a liar. He accused her of chasing money. She exposed every promise he'd made behind my back. The romance they'd defended for months collapsed in front of everyone. Linda finally reached for my hand. Claire, people make terrible mistakes. You and Ethan have 6 years together. Don't throw everything away because of one woman. I looked at her. There wasn't one woman. There was one plan, and your son invited her into it. I placed 2 final documents on the table, the divorce petition and the temporary financial orders Rachel had prepared. The condo remains premarital property. The down payment came from my mother's estate. The prenuptial agreement is enforceable. Ethan will receive exactly what the law says he should receive, not $1 less. And not $1 more. Ethan stared at me. What about the $520,000? For the first time that evening, I smiled. There isn't any. He blinked. What? The bonus hasn't been finalized. The stock hasn't vested. I invented the number. I wanted to know what you would do if you believed a large payment was coming. His shoulders dropped. You set me up. I shook my head. No, you started this plan long before I came home. I simply stopped helping you hide it. Building security arrived 15 minutes later. Vanessa's 2 suitcases waited beside the elevator, exactly where they'd been the day she secretly moved in. Only this time, no one welcomed her inside. Ethan refused to leave. He claimed he had rights as my husband. I didn't argue. I packed only what mattered: my laptop, important documents, family photographs, the bracelet my mother left me. Then I checked into a hotel 3 blocks away. For the first time in years, I didn't stay behind to clean up a mess I hadn't created. The months that followed weren't dramatic. There were attorneys, financial records, forensic examinations, court conferences. His employer opened an internal investigation after discovering he'd used my financial information to support private investment proposals. Friends who'd believed Vanessa quietly apologized after seeing the evidence. The divorce ended exactly as the law required. The condo remained mine. Shared marital assets were divided fairly. The forged financial documents were handled separately through the proper legal process. Justice wasn't loud. It was thorough. After everything ended, I sold the condo. Not because I lost it, because I no longer needed a home built around someone else's lies. I bought a smaller place near my office, filled it with books, plants, travel photographs. Every room reflected choices that belonged only to me. Months later, Ethan waited outside my office holding white roses. I finally understand. You were the only person who ever truly loved me. I looked at the flowers, then at him. No, you finally understand. That you lost the person who kept rescuing you from yourself. The elevator doors closed between us. He remained outside, still holding the roses, still waiting for the woman who would have forgiven him. She never came back. The woman who walked into that condo 3 weeks early lost a husband and a best friend. For a while, I believed that was the tragedy. Later, I realized something else had ended that night. My habit of mistaking loyalty for a reason to stay. And leaving that behind was the best homecoming of my life.